Yeah, certainly. Um, yeah, life is like a game, and there's going to be competition out there, especially between other men, because if there's a beautiful woman and she's a 10, there's going to be lots of guys pursuing that woman because we're naturally drawn by the physical appearance of a woman more than what we are her personality. But that can be a distraction because you can meet a beautiful woman and her personality might be horrible. And then it's like, do I really want to be with that person? But to cut to the chase, like, how does a man stand out, and get the woman that he wants with so many other men trying to pursue that exact same woman?
Well, once again, it's there's no perfect way to say that you can become the man who can just go out and get the woman that he wants. Not from the perspective of saying like, I'm going to go and I'm going to get the prom queen or whatever. I'm going to get the prettiest girl in the place because, I'm the guy. Now, some guys do have those skills. They're generally the kinds of guys who can go in and just pluck a woman out of a situation and take her away because he has like high levels of choice. It's going to be pretty cliche in the sense that he's probably going to be like fitting a profile of what she desires, just the same as men have the same projective kind of things. Like if, we have 100 women in front of us, but there's, a couple that are very attractive on the natural scale of like beauty of what society says is beautiful and what we perceive to be beautiful, then guys are going to fixate on those women. And guys are going to be very entranced by those women. And if those women want any one particular man, if there's 100 men, there's 100 women, and those women choose one guy out of 100, like it's going to be, very easy for her to choose in the sense that she's going to have more power to choose compared to a woman who doesn't have those traits, those qualities, those beauty standards or whatever. So this is something that we all have to come to terms with in society, and it's definitely something that we've all cultivated inside of ourselves a lot over this last decades. Like think about it from a perspective of if we lived in a societal condition where we were interacting with each other based on all kinds of different metrics of exchange. Like if we lived in nature together and part of life was like doing hard work, part of life was being more expressive, part of life was about keep taking care of family, then we would see and we would value the qualities of each other on a much broader spectrum of life value systems, because we would have interfaces. We would be able to see, well, she might not be the most attractive person, but she's really good at taking care of the place. She might not be the nicest person, but she's really good at like making sure that things are in order in this way or whatever. So people get respect based on that. Same thing as like he might not be the most attractive guy, but he always brings the wood. He might not be the most smartest guy, but he always makes everybody feel good. You see what I'm saying? So the problem these days is now we walk around with these things and we look at these black mirrors all day and all we see is superficial tokens of who looks good according to shiny basic standards of like who's got the nicest, the nicest look inside of these things. Now, the sad trend over the last decade, particularly probably the last couple of decades, but definitely the last decade, has been that people have massively moved towards online interactions, online apps, online interfaces to choose partners. Now, there's a certain laziness to that. There's a certain self-protection to that. There's a certain cultural kind of standard to that. And the truth is that people just don't want to be vulnerable to being in the real world and meeting strangers in the way that they maybe did or had to a couple of decades ago, because that was the standard of meeting people. People don't necessarily want to go out to a bar or a club and have to like find a partner. And even if they do go out to a bar or a club, they don't know how to deal with that situation of meeting somebody and being able to create a connection. And, there's a lot of reasons why that can be challenging too. So with all of that complexity versus just sitting on your phone and swiping, people tend to choose the swipe But the problem is, if you're not one of that top percentile of people on those apps that looks good and has the perfect kind of profile, if you can't
Mm,
project yourself as being this type of like selected type of person, then
mm,
it means you don't really get in the game. You're not really
yeah.
in the proper kind of like range of the marketplace. And then the sad reality for both men and women is that 80% of people on those apps, probably more, are having really dissatisfying experiences.
Yeah, you're
Now,
not wrong.
generally, and generally, women are more selective than men, probably because generally they have more invested in the actual interaction. So, like
Mm,
a man, not always, but oftentimes, he's lonely, he's horny, he just wants to hang out with somebody, he wants to have an experience, he wants to be
mm,
intimate, and he's happy to kind of come and go and have a little bit more of a loose or lighthearted or the free type of rules around what the interaction is. Where a
mm,
woman is unconsciously playing a whole bunch of extra sets of rules, like
mm,
what if she wants to have kids? What if she wants to have a future? What if other people believe that she's not a cool person anymore because she's dating somebody she doesn't really want to be with, or she's having
mm,
sex with guys and she doesn't really see them as like family partners, etc.
mm,
So there's a lot of layers of, once again, cultural programming that are affecting the sexes, both men and women, in terms of like their selection criteria of how and who they're going to connect with. So
mm,
on a level, one of the ways to be able to get selected and one of the ways to be able to be more effective at selecting is to show up in a way where you do look the part of
mm,
a selected type of person. Now, we can't always do that the way we would like, but it does pay to pay attention to the most basic stuff first. Like, make sure that you smell okay. Make sure that you dress with well-fitting clothes that are basically good for your style. Have a certain style, even if it's just like a H&M style or whatever. It's just going into a fashion store
mm,
and saying like, give me some outfits that are complete outfits that are a thing that look good on my style, my frame, my look, my personality, and then you will have some type of like basic character format. And as long as you have, once again, basic kind of dental hygiene, basic haircut, if you can do fitness, awesome. Men, fitness is going to be seen as a pro, right? Same for
mm,
both men and women. If we see a fit woman, we hold her in higher regard. A woman sees a fit
definitely.
man, he instantly gets held in higher regard. It's just one of these basic things. Now, does that mean we should fixate on becoming gym bros and just looking good based on like what's going on in the fashion stores?
Mm,
Not necessarily. I mean, obviously there's a standard. Now that standard doesn't have to be super high, but you definitely need some type of standard, because the opposite's also like if you are really unhealthy, if you look sick, if your dental hygiene's bad, if you've got a ridiculous haircut, if your fashion is stupid and you look like shit and you don't understand how to dress yourself, then you have to recognize like, what is that saying to somebody?
mm,
That's saying like you're basically an incompetent adult to a degree, right?
mm,
And if we met a woman who had scraggly hair, bad breath, and didn't know how to dress, even if she was kind of hot, we would be like, yeah, this girl's a bit fucking
mm,
cuckoo. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And
yeah.
she would be losing points pretty quickly according to certain standards. And the opposite's also true. A woman can be basically crazy, but if she knows how to make her hair look nice, she knows how to dress well, she knows how to smell good, she knows how to take care of herself, then all of a sudden she's a queen. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
So sometimes these basic standards can make a big difference. Now, beyond that, there is this secondary layer of things that are very important, which then it comes to your expression of your communication, your ability to be in your self confidence, your ability to be powerful in who you are. So this is where we get into like more of the inner dimensions. Now, technically, the inner level is always the first level that really happens,
mm,
because even when we're talking about, you know, brushing up and looking good, it still comes from some type of inner motivation, some type of inner self image, some type of inner standards that are going to create that self and that projection of who you are in the world. But let's say beyond that, what can we do next? Well, this is where we start to get into skill sets, because even if you're the coolest guy with the biggest muscles and the coolest leather jacket and the maddest
mm,
haircut and the coolest car and the most money in his wallet, if you're just going to stand there and look cool and smoke cigarettes, you're still going to be waiting for women to choose you. And that's
mm,
not going to be cool. So being a chooser rather than a chosen when it comes to being a man and woman too, but being a chooser is one of the big steps to take to be a considered mate. Now, a lot of the times we like to see beautiful people, we respect beautiful people, we desire beautiful people, but beautiful people sometimes don't act like choosers. They still have their own shyness, their own anxiety, their own insecurities, their own lack of skills when it comes to socializing. And, they might be given a certain level of freedom and value according to other people's positions, but that doesn't necessarily make them more capable seducers or partners or lovers, maybe, but generally the only reason why they're going to be those things is because they've trained, because they've learnt, because they've upgraded themselves. So this comes down to another set of skills, which is like being a lover, being a man that can choose women is a identity. It's an identity that acquires skills. It's an identity that operates in a way that has a certain level of adaptive capabilities. Now, to be able to see women and to appreciate them, to be able to read them in the sense of like you can read something about their energy, you can read something about their look, you can read something about their personality. Now, once again, this is not rocket science. It's going to take some practice. And especially if you're a guy, like a lot of guys, if you're stuck in your head talking to yourself all the time, worried about what other people think about you, well, you've got to get out of your head, So that's also another thing, like getting into your body, relaxing, learning to build a certain level of self-confidence, self-trust, which another way of saying that more practically is you need to build a self-concept, some internal representations inside your subconscious mind that have emotional foundations that you're good in your own mind, that you're
Absolutely.
safe, that you're secure. And then it builds into other traits like feeling, and if you are, which a lot of guys are, intelligent, well, that's one of your strengths. So add intelligence to your stack and then approach women and tell them that you've seen them and you think that they're interesting and you want to meet them. And if she's pretty, talk about stuff that makes her interested in talking to you because she's interested in the pretty conversation about being a princess. But don't be afraid to start to introduce and show that you have value as an intelligent man, or that you have value as a different type of thing that's not just, a cool haircut and a leather jacket. So looking at it in terms of like there are skills that we can develop. And generally, I mean, this is the job that I did for 20 years, is like this is about building a series of social skills. And the first thing is really to be able to go to a place where you have access to people. Now, you can do it online to a degree as well, but online is going to limit you. But generally, we talk about in the real world. So you're going to see things, you're going to see people, you're going to pay attention to things, you're going to feel, and then you're going to respond. And then this is about developing a skill set of what we call like opening. We have to open somebody. We can open them by making an observation. We can open them by using some type of premeditated material that's generally good material, making an observation about their style, making an observation about, some quality that we've seen that we think is cool, and then using that as a way to say, you seem interesting and unique. I wanted to come and meet you. I like your style because of X, Y, Z. And then seeing if we can take that general container to start to open. After we open, then we want to connect. Connecting is going to be all about who are they, who are you, what are they doing, what are you doing, what's their situation, what's your situation, and trying to find, is there some type of synchronization there? And then ideally on the connect level, we want to go from a general nice guy types of conversations or general pleasant exchanges about the weather and about, the sports or about the politics or whatever. We want to go from that stuff, which is more just introductory, like casual conversation, into more specific, articulate, detailed conversations about why, what, how, who in the situation, so that we can then go down to the deeper level of personal. So like, who is she? Who are you? What does that mean about you? What does that mean about her? And then finally we go into the relating. So we go from general to specific to personal to relating. So then it creates this vertical value layer of general to specific, of general social to more intimate, personal, friendly, and then maybe even sexual. And the faster we can do that, the more skilled we can do that, the more confident we feel inside of doing that inside of ourselves. the faster and more powerful that's going to happen. So there is a secret sauce here, which is that if we are afraid of facing something inside of ourselves, the world will deny it from us. If
Mm,
we are afraid of facing our sexual vulnerability, our needs, if we are afraid of working with our expression in a way that's well calibrated, because we're afraid of being judged, we're afraid of being rejected, we're afraid of not being good enough, we're afraid of being shamed, well, people are going to like smell that. They're going to feel it. They're going to see it to a degree. And one of two things is going to happen. Either we're going to attract people that are on the same level as us, and then we just end up stuck in pleasant, nice person land where we don't really ever have any deeper interactions because everybody's just sort of feeling the same. Or we're going to attract some levels of judgment and disrespect and rejection, which is the exact thing that we're trying to avoid. So
mm,
the problem with a lot of nice guys
mm,
is that they're trying to do the thing that they think is going to make them liked, but in a way, they're afraid of really seeing and feeling the underlying judgment and fear and insecurity of who they are in the world, and they're not okay with how they feel about themselves and how they sense their value in the world. And as a result, it doesn't matter how nice they are, what they're going to end up creating is unfulfilling experiences and expectations of communication. They're going to attract people that are going to either disrespect them and devalue them because they can see their weakness, or
mm,
other weak people, perceived weak people anyway, nice people that once again don't really have that type of gravity, that type of depth. And in many ways, they don't have that power, because the truth is, when you face unknowns, when you face uncertainty, when you face fear, when you face
mm,
insecurity, and you do something about it, you adapt to it, you grow stronger in the face of it,
mm,
you digest it, you become powerful, then you become like a serious dude. You become a serious player, and that's respectable. It's respected by men, it's respected by women, and it will give you more points on the human value scale, whether that's authority or sexual value or
mm,
intelligence. It gives you more of these like game points of like shadow power that is actually integration of self. And then ideally, every time you integrate, you become more of your true self, and you become a little bit less unlimited.